How many women see their partner's true colors on their wedding day honeymoon? I just read the article from Elon Musk's first wife from years ago where she details how awful he was to her in their marriage. There's a moment where he leans over to her during the actual wedding reception, as they are dancing, and says something like "I am the alpha now" or something ridiculous. She says it was a shock. And the first time he'd said something, she took it as a warning sign. The first of many. Poor woman. The article is called Starter Wife. I sent it my mom and she reminded me that my aunt's boss once told my aunt that, on her wedding night, her new husband told her he'd wished she was his ex-partner in that dress but she was a fitting replacement. The first time she'd realized he was hung up on his ex. I'm just baffled here. Does the audacity really come that soon? How have they hidden themselves for so long? Why wouldn't they wait another few days? I wondered if anyone else had any stories that show this behavior. Do they really wait for the legal papers to be signed and start to behave this way? As soon as the day of, or the honeymoon? I have to finalize with that this is just a genuine curiosity rather than a personal worry. Not relevant to my personal life. My mother told me that following the reception, she and my father got on the train for their honeymoon. And my father leaned in and said, "What do you have to be smiling about?" The physical abuse came right after that. The night we got married, he told me, "By the way, I don't cook or clean or do laundry anymore. That's your job. I own you now." I really thought he was just being funny. He was not kidding. My mother worked with my father for years before they started dating. The first time he showed who he was on their honeymoon. She ran into his ex-wife later. The ex asked her if he had started hitting her yet. He knew when and how to hide it. My aunt's husband was the perfect example of a gentleman. They got married, and he beat her up so badly on their wedding night that he broke her collarbone. It took her over 20 years and countless beatings, broken bones to gather up the courage to divorce him. Pro tip: if your partner does something this egregious on your wedding day after the wedding, there is something you should know. If you got married at the most popular time of Saturday afternoon, your marriage is a bit of a gray area until the officiant files it Monday morning. Call the officiant, prevent it from being filed, and you just had a big party with a near miss. A surprising number of women are hit for the first time on their wedding night. Many women are also cheated on when pregnant. When they think they have you locked down, they feel free to be themselves. It's also why so many men cheat or otherwise misbehave close to the wedding. They assume their bride will be too embarrassed and too financially invested to call it off. You can't weed these guys out by taking trips or dating for X number of years. And you have to have seen all those videos of men gleefully smashing their wives' face into wedding cake. These ones, like Elmo, apparently can't even make it through the wedding reception. There are specific points in a relationship where an abuser will start to take off his mask. And he does it in stages. The first is when he's confident you won't just break up with him on the spot. Then it's when you move in together. Then another is when you get married. Then another when he's successfully isolated you from your friends and family. And usually the last one is when you have children. That's when it comes all the way off. They wait until you're trapped. Who's going to blow up and dump their new husband while dancing at their own wedding? Especially when he's been great before that moment. Not many people. That's what they count on. That's what they get off on. It's common for domestic abuse to start during a woman's first pregnancy. On my wedding day, my ex told me that he loved me so much that he married me despite the fact that I wasn't even in the top 3 in his ranking of previous sexual partners. Apparently he considered that a compliment. A dear friend said in the day of her wedding she saw something die in her new husband's eyes. He went from happy and active to a depressed lump. They divorced a year later. So very odd. Sometimes they wait till you have their kid and you're stuck. My soon-to-be ex-husband got so hammered on our wedding night. He cussed me out and insulted me in front of friends while we were trying to take a picture. Then tried to pick a fight with the Uber driver taking us back to the hotel for no reason. It was a nice little sampler of the next 5 years of my life married to an alcoholic. This thread is giving me a panic attack. How do you ever know you're not being duped? I love my BF so much and he lives with me, but is he actually long-term manipulating me? He'll wait to cheat on me until I'm pregnant? It wasn't my wedding night, but I had similar to your aunt's boss. My boyfriend proposed to me, convinced me to move to another country with him. I gave up all my possessions, my business, and moved there. Within 3 days he started crying about how he missed his ex-wife. It was also the first time I'd heard anything about being hooked on the ex-wife. So I packed my shit and went home to start from scratch with literally nothing. I'll never trust anything a man says ever again enough to change my life in any way. I will never live with them, marry them. I don't even date or have sex with them anymore. I'm just done with this garbage. Yep. Some literally wait. My first husband literally turned a switch on our honeymoon. It's not as though he was some knight in shining armor beforehand. But he was a complete asshole on our honeymoon. We cut it short, and his behavior only got worse when we got home. I did everything I could to work it out, but he insisted everything was fine. It wasn't. I left him some months later, and he stalked me for a year. I had to leave the state. It was brutal. I met him through my sibling. They worked together. So though he was vetted, so to speak, my sibling talked him up so much. Boy, we were all wrong. A few weeks after our wedding, my ex apologized to me because, "You'll see me for who I really am." We had dated for 3 years, so I had no idea what he was talking about. He seemed a little off that first year, but I thought he was dealing with the stress of moving and in a life rut. It wasn't until I became pregnant and got a job that paid more than his that he really let his immature side out. This was right after our first anniversary. We were separated by our second anniversary. If your husband looks anything but happy as hell on his wedding day, I wouldn't go back to the hotel with him. I wasn't standing in the right spot, but my mom saw my brother's face as his wife walked down the aisle, and it was nothing but love. The way he has talked about and viewed her has been nothing but love for years. No one deserves anything less. It is why I wish women gave side eye to marriage. I know it can be a good thing and it is certainly romanticized, but there are abusers who straight up view it as a illegal noose. They may seem super commitment oriented. In fact, they may be the only guy the woman has known who wants to run headlong into it. But it is for none of the reasons she wants to. Women have to remember, historically, marriage was possession. You were property, and that's why you took his last name. We have not turned that all around in less than 100 years, especially since worldwide, the majority still view women that way. My ex told me everything up to the point that we moved 3,000 miles away where I knew no one was an act. He told me, "Do you know how hard it is to act for so long?" He's an actual sociopath. He put me off of men for a very long time. I couldn't believe that I couldn't spot that he was a monster until it was too late. Made my question my own perception. Every piece of information that I hear about Elon's past relationships is just plainly bad, like to a cringe-tastic extent. I don't think I could keep a straight face if someone leaned into my ear and said I'm the alpha now. I'd laugh, then excuse myself to the wedding cake while I file for annulment. I saw each of my partner's true colors after we were engaged. So I've been engaged 3 times and married once. And married 23 years.